All right, what's up, everybody? Blake here from the Outcast Haven. I am joined by Bergy. Tonight, we're just going to do some commentary over gameplay. We had a little bit of audio issues, so rather than have people hear some difficult audio to listen to, we're going to go ahead and commentate over it a little bit and talk through the game. So, Bergy, you are actually playing this game as King Piccolo against Jake. So, what are your thoughts going into Piccolo or into Jiren as King Piccolo?
I was fearing Xeno, so I was just my brain through the first mulligan. I was just like, how do I deal with this card? How do I defend versus other stuff? You see me there messaging people. Um, yeah, it's just so scary because Jiren doesn't die for a couple turns, so I need to like charge, which King Piccolo doesn't like to do. Like it plays a lot of its stuff for free, so giving my
Yeah.
opponent time to get energy up to do the same stuff I'm doing, where he does stuff like Raiders War Cry in the combo step was just very scary going from the beginning. But as you see, I got the piano off turn one, which felt really good because yellow doesn't have the best stuff to respond with it. Like Zamasu super combo rest, it feels bad, but they waste a Zamasu on it instead of other stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot to swing into like a piano. Like a little 4K is not what you want to be doing. So you got your little combo off. He took a damage turn one and you moved on. So here he's playing his searcher, right? That's the guy who lets him go hunt.
Yeah, binary blade.
Yep. So he goes and gets the
barrier guy.
Yep, gets the Kunchi, so everything gets barrier, which means it's going to be a little harder. Do you have any? Are there minuses in King Piccolo for removal that go through barrier, or is most of it not through barrier?
The only thing through barrier is Wolfang Fist in the deck, and then Freeze's Army SCR, which, spoiler alert, I didn't get till the next tournament after this one, so I wasn't running it at the time. Same with promos; those were in the mail at the time. So, and Dom was also playing in it. And normally he lets me borrow them, but because he was playing, I couldn't borrow them. So
yeah. So the deck is. I mean, you're playing a version of the deck that's still good. It also proves how good it can be without promos and an SCR, which is always a good thing. So
yeah, like right now you see he taps down the piano with the Raiders. I think he might have swung into it a couple times, which is fine. Like I just flipped the tambourine over and don't really care. But
yeah. So do you think that's the play, or do you think you just leave piano alone? Do you think, like, as a King Piccolo player, do you think you just leave piano on board and just say who cares?
The number of times I've gone dormant into Shocking Death Ball and just made me sad and not draw cards for a turn or two has mattered so many times. So I think you swing into it and just force me because it comes back skills negated, so I just don't draw.
Yeah, so you can't get it twice. So it's a little yellow has a little tougher time dealing with it than maybe some of the green decks do that can just outright kill it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going binary blade again. So the math is starting to add up to a concerning level for you, right?
Yeah, I saw. I was like, oh, this is getting close, and I know Jake killed, and he runs cooler the counter, and I'm like, all right,
yeah.
So we have to be careful of the number 3 now, and we need to be worried about negates. So I was holding like I think 3 Violent Rays by turn 3, just because I knew I needed them for Celzino, and this deck spams blockers as well. For those who don't know, it just spams a barrier blocker called Drum, and I just knew I could survive through the little stuff with it. And what's it called? I don't even know why my phone was going off so much during that game. Sorry about that, but
popular.
Yeah, no, then Zamasu tapped the leader, does stuff like that. He taps the leader to get the 5, which is smart. That card's good. Again, buy 4 when the evolution comes out.
Yeah, that right there, I think was like that's a heads up play. Jake's a really good player here. We play against him quite a bit, and Jake's a really good player in the fact that he notices those little interactions, which I think are interactions sometimes people miss, which is being able to tap the leader down to trigger the basal, right? He knows he has it in his hand. He knows he needs 5 cards tapped. So he needs to get that tapped down just so he can trigger the basal effect, which is that's just good play. That's really smart play as a player to make sure you're maximizing your opportunity to keep the opponent's board clear when you're playing something like Jiren that wants to play longer. Especially because, he's playing into you, right? King Piccolo wants to go faster, wants to be more aggressive, and it does so with its board, right? It's not like Turles is less about the board being spamming bodies to attack and more about the board's effects and then getting to certain numbers for certain things. Whereas King Piccolo is all about just spamming bodies that can just aggro you down and it plays mid range fine, but the fact that it can like spam 15k bodies is also really scary.
I yeah, that top 5 was really lucky, I think,
Yeah.
because what's it called? Yeah, and then I attack of the Demon Clan. I think I do it. Yeah, I do it to grab a drum because then I can combo with the drum minus one of hits things out without barrier, and then I think I might have swung into it with the Piccolo, but
Okay.
I'm not 100% certain. So he's no -10. Oh no.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the top 5 to grab the Unison I think was really clutch in this matchup because the -2 doesn't worry about battle card cost, rather power, and this deck can get its battle cards up to 40k for even though it's single strike, still matters for the -2.
Yeah.
So you can see later, like it'll come in huge to just deal with the threats that many decks offer nowadays.
Yeah, I think the minus is that's the big thing is like matching power is a huge thing when you're buffing your power quite a bit, especially because you know
Mhm.
you're going into a deck that does efficiently play Celzino. It has a lot of barrier, and also it just is able to not die. That's the more painful part is you need to manage his board because his board is able to give him Celzino. He needs to manage your board because your board can give him fits in terms of being able to 15k him down. And it just you guys are playing a back and forth here, right, where you're really working hard to kind of keep up with one another and manage the board. And you can see from here, you can see in the video, you can actually see in Jake's hand he has that counter too. So it was a good call for you to keep an eye out for it.
I've played too many games into your mecha and just gotten absolutely screwed by blue just going, oh, I'll counter with the monkey, and then you just tap through and just kind of chuckle and you're like, no, you won't. We're doing this now. I'm like, great.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, like, it's funny because I think that's the thing is blue has to either give it away with the unison or has to be willing to tap 5. Yellow obviously isn't blue in its energy efficiency, but the fact that it's a 3 and then even crazier is a draw 2 is probably the most insane thing, right? The fact that yellow has access
Yeah.
to a card that can give you also 2 card draw. You're like, let me counter you and also draw 2 more cards. That doesn't feel bad.
hmm
And then
And
he
I
just
think things
goes
like
out.
that are good.
Yeah, he gets another blocker
Right.
here, so he's trying to stave off your attack, and I think he's just digging for Celzino hard here.
Yeah, no, we kind of talked about it. I'm like, I start on 6. Xeno is just extreme lethal pressure versus this deck. Like, even though I'm at 5,
Yeah.
one of those 4 life needs to be a negate. And right here, you see I see another piano. And then pay 2 for another unison just to start drawing cards, get Wolfang Fist back online, and I have 1 energy up for what's it called for
Violent
Celzino,
rays.
potentially for Violent Rays.
Hmm.
And then yeah, I saw all my drums this game. That card is good. Like the number of times my opponent's been like, "Wait, it's barrier as well." I'm like, "Yeah." So Zamasu doesn't tap it down at -10 something. It's just been so value.
Well, and right there, can you talk a little bit about that interaction with your life? What's the life interaction when you're with your leader?
So actually, I have the leader right here. I can read it. The leader has activate battle. If you have a red Namekian or Demon Clan card faced up in your life, place the top card of your deck in your life face up, then combo with 1 face up red Namekian or Demon Clan card in your life. So that can be my super combo. I run that card specifically because of that. It can be that's how you get the drums out for free. That's how you get the tambourines and the cymbals out. And that's the main engine for the deck of just comboing from life and then getting free value off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of similar to how Turles does it, but King Piccolo only gets it once per turn, and his cards I think are just 1 for 1 better.
Yeah. Well, and here's the interesting. We've hit like the interesting point for the Jiren matchup where if you don't have a way to handle the board because of the barrier from Kunchi, what you end up with is a board full of things that you need to kill in order to just deal more than 1 damage in a turn. And that's where I think Jiren is at the most scary is the fact that it's really hard to kill him from here. And on top of that, this is a deck that Jake absolutely adores. Like Jiren is just his favorite. So he's in a place where he's kind of content with what he's got set up. And I think you staying at that 5 life total is smart because I think what you're hoping, right, is that maybe even if you get countered on a quad strike, it doesn't actually kill you. It just puts you to 1, and then maybe you can go nuts and combo out, or maybe you can go to a point where you can fire off another negate or something else.
Because so like you see, he does use the counter.
Yeah.
I discarded a card originally, and then I'm like, no wait, response is my effect doesn't resolve until after counter windows. That's why I picked the card back up. The
Yeah.
things like that, minor things. Blockers also matter. Like he can counter, but I could have blocked with drum, but I think one marker off the unison didn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it called? And you can see it's on both players' turns that I can combo with my leader as well.
Yeah.
So when he does end up swinging into my piano or my leader or something, I can end up using another drum to minus something down. I think I minus the cooler because it doesn't have barrier. And then I use the piano effect to draw one card as well off of it. And and then also another huge thing for this matchup is just seeing your life, so knowing what it is, and putting that
Yeah.
pressure on your opponent to memorize what cards you have in your hand as well. It can just be such a mental game that can win you so often. Like I've had games where I've had all 4 super combos and my opponent has seen 3 of them, but they still don't know how many I have in my hand. And it's always made me kind of chuckle a little bit because I'm like, that's interesting to say the least, because most players will track it.
Yeah, you have to. It's hard to track. You know, you're tracking your life and your hand and their hand, and there's a lot going on in these games. I think the face-up life adds another element. Jake dropped the ultimate kind of counter potentially to this meta where everyone's playing so many cards and everything is basically like. I mean, Dragon Ball has always been a game of like skill plays, at least for the time that we've been in it. And I think it's even more so now when you look at this meta where so much is free play. That poutine is so clutch, and that now here we go. We've got Celzino.
Line them up. I love
Ooh,
this deck. This deck
and
draws so many cards, and he hit 2 super
two
combos.
super combos. That's nasty.
And I made a couple remarks. If the audio wasn't trash, you would have heard me go, "Great," just in the most sarcastic tone. But it's not the end of the world. Again, I have 3 blockers and my unison -2 and whole 9 yards. So and I violent raised as well that turn, so he couldn't. Wait, no, that was countered. Never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, he can
you
attack.
cancel it.
So block, swings there again. You can see me getting ready. I'm like, I'm not letting that through.
Yeah.
And
And then he passes over. This is an interesting thing from a game perspective where I guess the question is, I mean, he knows, I guess the difference between playing Xeno potentially too early in some matchups versus too early when you're Jiren is that you don't have to worry as much about getting beat on the clapback because you just you activate battle, take that life, and there you go. So now he forces you basically to deal with the board, but you're able to get Xeno off by your
rejuvenate. I don't know about it overall, but in this deck, it's actually pretty good. Like the board wipe attached to it just feels like solid value, and then also Mecha exists, so it gets to 5 stupid easy. So those 2 decks it feels good in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other deck that can use the rejuvenate skill is Mecha. I know some people don't like the unison in it, but I know Dane, who plays locally, and myself, the Mecha builds we've played, we like the Mecha unison because I think personally that being able to rejuvenate when you're using your life as one of your resources in like King Piccolo or in Mecha is so good. I don't understand why more people don't appreciate it, you know? Like if you use your life as a resource, why wouldn't you want to have more resources? I mean, because that's effectively what you're doing, and I think that's maybe the misconception is, oh, it's just one life, and it's like, right, but King Piccolo and Mecha both use life as resources. That's a part of their, being able to swap things around and have things set up for you with King Piccolo. In Mecha, being able to use your life to fire off another extra card it's just really important, and I think it's a big part of the deck. So here we see him coming at you again, and you're just trying to you're staying far away because you know that on top of his horrifyingly scary Xeno, he also runs Height of Mastery. So that's just
Hmm.
a whole nother world of hurt that he can bring, right?
Yeah. And then here you see barrier does come up. So yeah, taps the piano. The number of times piano has been turned sideways is crazy.
He's
I
active. He's really actively going after that thing.
Yeah, I know. I so I think around at this point in the game, I started realizing like, oh gosh, I'm gonna deck myself. So if you watch what I do, I actually end up comboing away the piano just so I don't die, which always felt weird.
Yeah, that is the one thing about some of these decks from this set is there is card draw that is actually almost to the point of being scary because you draw so many cards that you can get to a point where you can actually just deck yourself out. I know we were playing games with Dane playing his mecha deck where right you just kind of you and him were just grinding out a game so hard that at one point he counted his deck and realized if he drew or activated rejuvenate it was going to be the last card in his deck, so he had to win because he was actually going to lose the next turn. And that's
Hmm.
I think that's a product of some of these set 12 decks. They really do draw an insane amount of cards.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't know. I think it's good. Like I like cards in hand. I come from the card game with 5 at a max. So
Yeah.
like you mentioned when you first started with Robert, you're like, how many cards do we have in our hand? It's crazy, but like
Yeah,
even comparing
this
to other games, like
yeah, I think compared to other games, this game, it's amazing what you draw in set 12 kind of stepped another level. And here you play, talk about the card that you just dropped there.
oh, so that's my promo replacement because I needed to, like I ran it as a forecast as a proxy at the time, but during the tournament, no one wanted to really deal with proxies, and that's totally understandable. So I just ran that as the 20k double striker that could do a damage if he negated. So I was 100% ready for him to go negate with Nimbus. I go, okay, I'll pick up a life, take 1 damage, and then swing, and then he can't deal with it. But he was smart, played around it well, did the activate battle, whole 9 yards, and it puts a little bit more threat on him because if I swing with it and he negates, he just kind of dies.
Yeah, here's an interesting spot too because he's hit that point with Jiren where he basically has to win next turn. And there's where you looks like you
Mhm.
comboed off the
I did the
piano.
piano first, so
Yeah.
I didn't draw.
Yeah, getting rid of the piano I think is probably important there because
Hmm.
you do get to that point where you start to count your deck and things get a little scary. And I think the tough spot Jiren gets in this with this going on is the fact that Jiren has a big board. Like it looks like you guys both have big boards. The only issue is that in comparison, your cards are all threatening because they're all 15Ks and they can win. And he's got a bunch of little 5Ks out there that are they're doing effects, but that's pretty much all they're doing, right?
Hmm. And
So they're providing his activate battle and he's got a blocker, but he's just kind of basically in that spot where he's got to win now because the longer you go with King Piccolo, it seems like the board just starts to get kind of out of
mhm,
hand, which is pretty
it gets
crazy.
a little messy too.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
you guys are both just trying to like yeah, and I think this is where sometimes watching it is harder than being there because when you're
mhm,
looking across, you kind of know what came down and things like that. It's kind of hard to look watching on screen sometimes. You're like, okay, what is happening right now? I think the life flip stuff is maybe the hardest part about it because life being face up is absolutely the hardest thing to track now is your life is obviously your life, but then at the same time, like if you just kind of casually glance at it, you're like, man, there are just cards everywhere.
mhm. So I misplayed, I think, last turn. I should not have dropped the 4 drop, knowing that Height of Mastery taps 3. I think I should have just gone in with my stuff and just built board a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
because I was sitting on like 2 more Violent Rays. But in the end, I don't think it really mattered. Like I had 2 after images, so I just -10 this thing twice and threatened just to kill it off a third one.
Well, and you have the life to play with here. I think that's the key is you actually were able. It's funny because the threat of Cell Xeno actually put you in a place where it protected you from Height of Mastery because you were actually so because of Xeno you were keeping a high life total and now it's allowing you to fire off after images and things, even though you're tapped out.
And then yeah, I flipped another after image, so I could just go sparking after image to just kill your Height of Mastery. And here he plays the Vegeta, which honestly terrified me. By the way, that card is nasty.
Yeah. Did he get it? Did he do the? He did the play it for 3, tap something to give it 4, and then -3.
Yep.
Okay, so he's got double strike, dual attack. It's a 20k, which is insane.
Like sparking -10, that makes Height of Mastery. I think it's a 30k, so it just goes to 10. And then I was sitting on, again, I saw all 4 combos, super combos that game, so I had 2 more still, even after the Xeno dump. Did I want to write the combos down? I always forget it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there, you just
no,
minused it down.
now.
Yeah, it's a 35k, right? So you dropped it to 5. So, and because you figure you're safe here because he only has 2 cards in hand. You could probably out combo him, and then, you know, next turn he probably just knows now he's in that spot where he probably can't win. Because you just have too many cards in hand.
Yeah. I kind of had a feeling he was gonna go in with it, and like, to be fair, there's the super combo, like just making -10 doesn't seem like a lot, but it means way more than I think most people realize, because that's 2 cards in hand that combo out.
Yeah, there Jake just gives you the thumb down. I think he said he activated battle, right? I think when I was watching the video earlier.
He said activate battle, kill myself, and that game was a grinder, so
that's
the
way you go down in Jiren. So, but that's the game, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us and watching it. Leave your comments in down to the bottom there. If you got comments on ways you think these decks could be better, I know Bergy's already got some tweaks. Or if you like the commentary style, let us know, and we will do more of that, because we're happy to do whatever people enjoy more. So, thanks for hanging out, Bergy. Thanks for hanging out and talking through the gameplay with me.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun, and I hope we can do it again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. We appreciate everybody watching. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much.